saying simply this: thank you. Thank you for your love, your support, your encouragement, but most of all, your contributions over the course of the last 2 years. You'll never know the impact that you've had on our organization so that we can continue to impact others. For that reason alone, you continue to push the mission of our foundation, which is simply to build stronger foundations and communities by fostering a culture of educational attainment and advocacy, by promoting self-sufficiency, becoming good stewards of our community, and building future generations of change agents. We do that through a number of ways. By building strong literacy programming. We do that by providing scholarships for first-generation students and just those who want to go to college. By providing seminars and workshops on empowerment and self-esteem to our young people. We do that by advocating for the marginalized. We advocate for the LGBTQ community. We do that by fighting and advocating for HIV/AIDS awareness. You continue to help us fight for those issues. And we've been in unprecedented times these last couple of months, whether it be through COVID-19 or continuously seeing the civil unrest and social injustice of Black people around this country. We at the For Brighter Futures Foundation continue to stand strong in our efforts to remind people that not only do Black lives matter, but they are valuable. And that's what we try to promote here at this foundation. With your support, we've been able to do that. We know that this is hard times for many people. And like many organizations, we too have seen hard times. And we're asking for your help to be a part of our Bright Fund, the Bright Spot Fund. The Bright Spot Fund helps us continue to advocate and provide opportunities for all of our families, all of our individuals that we continue to support over the course of the year. The Bright Spot Fund is a very simple thing. By donating by $5 to this initiative, you're creating and changing a life. I said $5. That's it. We're not asking for a whole lot. Your contributions of that small amount can go a large way. How can you contribute? You can do that by going to www.forbrighterfutures.com/giving. And you can click on Sustainable Partners or the Giving button. We promise you, your contributions will go a long way. Again, on behalf of us here at the For Brighter Futures Foundation, we thank you. Again, we continue to thank you for the support that you give to us each and every time. And as we say around here, we're advocating for brighter futures and building future leaders today. Thank you, and God bless.
A voice of reason, a voice of purpose, to a generation in need. Welcome to PickEd Speaks.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of PickEd Speaks. I'm so excited that each and every one of you are joining us. Listen, this is about to be probably one of the best episodes, and I love all of my guests, and I love everyone who've been a part of it thus far. But this is probably about to be a really fun conversation because I love having discussions with individuals who not only speak truth to power, who actually know what they're talking about, but also doesn't mind listening to other views. Now, whether he believes they're right or wrong is one thing, but actually absolutely just loves having discussion. And I could not be more happier to have him here. Tonight, you're all about to hear some amazing conversation. Not quite sure what it's going to be, but listen, I'm excited about it. I want to introduce every one of you to none other than the doctor himself, Dr. Zachary Kirk. How are you, good sir?
I'm good. Look, that's a big intro to live up to, but I think that we'll do a good job. I think no matter what, I think all of our live viewers will definitely be entertained and will learn something. And hey, Don Marie Glenn, glad that you could join us.
Yeah, I am so excited about tonight. Listen, as I said to the people, listen, I don't know what we're going to give, but I will say that I'm excited about whatever.
I know what we're going to give, DeAndre. We're going to give our best.
I'll take it. I will take it. So with that, I first just want to give the opportunity for everyone. Excited. I'm sorry, that is not right. Okay, like what happened? I want to give everybody the opportunity to just learn about who you are, just kind of your background, and just kind of give everyone just a little bit of you. So I'll give you the floor.
Yep. So I'm an educational consultant and advocate in general. Just a little bit of my background. I was fortunate enough to serve in public education for 10 years. Hey, Fran, as a high school English teacher in Henry County Schools. From there, I became an instructional coach. I served as a professional learning specialist before returning. That was in Atlanta Public. Before returning to Henry County Schools as their K-12 literacy coordinator. After doing that for 2 years, I returned to Atlanta Public Schools, where I served as their secondary literacy coordinator and ultimately became their director of curriculum and instruction. I currently work for a educational company and as an account executive, and that kind of now leads me into my work of having a lot more time for advocacy. And it's really been, to be honest with you, DeAndre, a blessing, because I would have never thought God would line things up in the way that he has, because this is the time that my voice, I feel, needs to be most free to speak on behalf of the work that we do. And I do not honestly believe I could speak as freely as I'm able to now if I was not, or if I was still in the public educational space. Sometimes you have to get out in order to do the work that God has called you to do. And I think right now that is where God intends for me to be.
And I fully understand that to its fullest, because of the fact that, as I tell people, a lot of times when I was in the day-to-day operations in school and everything else, I kind of felt at times I had to be very careful and toe the line and walk on eggshells at times about what I wanted to say, because of course money is always tied to everything. And, you say certain things, you might lose the money, you might lose the this and that. And so I'm glad that I get a chance to advocate and just kind of be able to speak freely, if you will. So I get that. I also, because this is my show, I can say what I want to say. So this is a runoff season. And so as we said, there is an individual who has come on this live, and I actually want to shout her out because I think that people need to go out and vote for her on August 11th for the runoff. Francesca Warren is running in the runoff for the District 4 seat.
That's right. Francesca Lane Warren, she's the winner. Like, Francesca Lane Warren won the general election, but because there were three, she had the most votes, period. So I always declare Fran the winner because she received the most votes. But yeah, she is in a runoff because there were three candidates running for that District 4 seat in Fulton County.
And this is the first time in almost 20, I think it's the first time in almost 29 years that this seat has actually been open. This seat has been held by an individual for a very, very long time. And so one of the things, and I'm going to lead in with this. We've had a lot, and just be mindful, those of y'all who are watching, this is no way any slight at any persons who have held positions and titles and held seats. However, I want to ask you the question, because of the fact that the seat that Francesca is running for and won was held by someone for almost 30 years, the same individual. And even though that individual is a person of color, that seat has been held for almost 30 years. What do you feel about, persons in political office that serve for a very long time? Do you think that we still have, do they still have relevance? Or do you think that they kind of provide a crutch in a way?
That's a great question. Actually, this is something that is so interesting you bring this up. So I actually wrote an actual news story for the educational website, Education in Atlanta. And in that, the article is a 3-part series that talks about the role of the of young people, Generation Z and the millennials, Zoomers and millennials, in the advocacy and work of moving our society forward. And so part one, I laid down kind of my case. And then in part two, I interviewed two Gen Z influencers, Cole Bickerstaff, who is a recent graduate of North Atlanta High School, and Royce Mann, who is a recent graduate of Grady High School. The name Royce Mann may be familiar to some people because Royce was the Grand Marshal, I think it's called the Grand Marshal of the Atlanta Pride Parade this past in 2019. He had a viral video go on a speech, a poem he did called White Boy Privilege. You can Google it, White Boy Privilege, very powerful piece. In addition, he is leading a movement to rename Henry W. Grady High School and saying that name is racist and segregation and shouldn't exist for him now and for students now. And he also he's a founder of the Georgia March for Our Lives campaign. Anyway, all that to say, in my interview, Royce talked about the reason why we should not have career politicians. And he's very opposed to the whole concept of career politicians. I had actually never thought of it that way. And so he really made me do some deep thinking about, to what extent do I agree with term limits on our politicians, and to what extent do I think we should allow it? And I'm going to say this: I do not believe every single person who has made a career out of politics should stay in politics. But I do believe that some people are called to serve until they are no longer called to serve. An example goes two ways. Congressman Engel, I think it's Elgo, whatever, in New York. He's going to lose his seat. He clearly had overstayed his welcome by his constituents, and it was the role of those constituents to remove him from office, and that's what they did. However, I do not believe Congressman John Lewis, who represents the 5th District here, has overstayed his welcome, and I do believe that he is still called to be in service to the people because of the relevancy and the reverence he holds in our society. So that makes me say I do not agree with term limits, but I also don't agree with people staying beyond their welcome and not actually being able to fulfill the role. I think Francesca is going to win this election. I know Francesca is going to win the election if we get out and vote, because she is hands down the best person for the position. I believe she is called to that seat. I do believe that the person who held the seat previously to her was there and did also a great work and was a great representative for South Fulton County at the time in which she served. And it's just simply time for new leadership to come in, and Francesca is, in my opinion, the leadership to move them forward.
Now, and I want to kind of press you on.
Press away. I
want to play devil's advocate just a little bit, because I love John Lewis. I love all the individuals. And so I want to play devil's advocate a little bit and speak for individuals who may be saying, you know what, but maybe his time is up. The question I have is, do you think in essence that even though we believe that he is still called to service, do you think that sometimes though people are called to service and people are called to be present, do you always feel as if they still need to be present in their current capacity? Could it be that the way that they can serve could serve in a different capacity and be provided that space for someone else to now take the reign?
You know, that's absolutely the case. But this is the thing. Only God will reveal that to that person. And that person has to deal and grapple with whether or not they answer God's call. Mm-hmm. Only God can say to John Lewis, it's time for you to step down. And only John Lewis will suffer the consequence of not heeding God's word if that is what, he's called. Mm-hmm. Personally, when you think about what would happen if there was no John Lewis, or if there, John Lewis is in his 80s. He's struggling stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Many people would have said that John Lewis perhaps should have taken a seat, several cycles ago. Had that happened, look at all the things that Congressman Lewis was able to achieve in the span of time to further cement not only his legacy, but the legacy of American civil rights. There is no one in Congress better poised to present a challenge to President Trump than John Lewis. There is no one better suited to stand up to the racist rhetoric than someone who walked through a totally different type of racism and a totally different type of white supremacy by having led our civil rights movement. Congressman Lewis is the only person in Congress who can say that he was right there on the front line supporting the push and the change that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1965, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. No one else can say that. We needed that voice at this time, and I personally believe that God kept him there so he could be that voice. What the future holds, only God knows, but I do believe that Congressman Lewis has done great service, and I think that he will still be of service if that is in God's will.
Now, how do we, now on the flip side of that, how do we talk to our people and getting them out of the mentality or the mindset of I'm voting for, Niecy and them or my cousin them because I know them because, we grew up together. And unfortunately, Niecy and them or Mike or may not be the best person for the seat. But because I feel a loyalty, how do we get our people to become more educated in that sense and then just become necessarily dealing with, loyalty?
DeAndre, it's politics. And I need Don Marie, Chris, Francesca, I need y'all to put some comments over here to keep us going, to let us know that what we're saying, you may not agree or you do agree or we're on the right track. I'm going to tell you, DeAndre, flat out. It is the job of the politician to make a compelling case and win the voters. And if Niecy is what appeals, then Niecy is what should serve and represent her constituents. Mm-hmm. Period. Like, that is how it works. And it is the work of an effective politician to relate to the people he or she is going to serve. An example, there are a lot of people who are attacking Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I think it's a very great time to publicly wish her and her family prayers at this time, as she is now admitted that she has been diagnosed with COVID-19. There is continuous attacks on her in the media. I have seen, I watched all weekend, all of these people on Twitter, particularly a lot of Black men, leverage attack after attack after attack against this phenomenal Black female leader. And then I watched the Republican machine gear up and attack her as well, saying that Atlanta is lawless. You have Black people attacking her on one side, saying that she's too hard on police and she's not being sensitive and she is not serving her constituents. On the other hand, you have Republicans and conservatives in Atlanta saying that she has led to a lawless state. Now you have a militarized effort being led by Brian Kemp to take over the city and enforce it with his National Guard troops so he can appear to be America's governor. And he's putting a squash down on these lawless Black people in Atlanta. And it makes me say, does Keisha have a fighting chance of even getting a second term? And it's something that bothers me. I'm a huge Keisha fan. I'm a huge supporter of our mayor. I'm a huge proponent and supporter of Black women and Black leadership. But it is her job ultimately to appeal to her constituents and make people relate to her as a politician. And it is unfortunate that, she's in these trying times. But again, it goes all the way back to what I said in the beginning. That's what God has called her to do. And she is a leader that he has given us at this moment.
And so, and you went into what I was going to in a minute, as it pertains to Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. And again, we are continuously sending prayers to her family and even all those who may be connected with her, because it may be, unfortunately, a ripple effect coming down soon.
And to the governor, we're going to pray for him too, because he's stupid for for pushing out military troops in Atlanta, but not doing anything to mandate the wearing a mask. So we're going to pray for him too, pray for his increased understanding.
I also, unfortunately, also have to pray for Morehouse brother Herman Cain, who also went to the rally and unfortunately contracted COVID-19 as well.
You can send those prayers up.
Yeah, that's what I sent those. Again, I said it is what it is. But going back to Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and some of the critiques that so many people have had of her, and particularly a lot of women that I've seen. I find it interesting that it's a lot more of Black men over Black women who attack a lot of these women in these roles. I'm just curious of your thoughts, because of course a lot of them are more critical of her than they were of Kasim Reed. And so what is your take on that?
I'm going to tell you, I have really thought about this and I have been really concerned about this, but I personally feel as though it is a level of racist misogyny that has been ingrained and beaten into a number of Black men that they have to overcome and undo and unpack. I hate that the world is set up, the system has been set up this way, and that people have been unfortunately conditioned. But I do believe it's a type of conditioning that is a result of systemic racism that has become ingrained and tied inside of the mentality of some Black men. So much so that they are going to be hypercritical of female leadership and females in general. And I think that for some men, this level of toxicity affects and infects their relationships, their families, how they raise their daughters, how they respond to their daughters, and how they condition the next generation to continue to move forward. And it's heartbreaking to me, but I think you see it, and you can see it in homes, you can see it in education, and you can most certainly see it in how they respond to female leadership. I think that it's something that we have to undo. And DeAndre, that is why I feel as though every single person should read the book Stamped from the Beginning by Dr. Ibram Kendi. I'm using that as my first book club book. We're going to have a book club the week of August 4th. It's going to be, for me personally, a week of celebrating President Barack Hussein Obama, as that is his birthday week, August 4th. And we're going to have a book club reading around this book about anti-racism and Stamped from the Beginning. It's really about the history of racist ideas. But that book does indeed share some insight into the way that Black people in general have been conditioned by society based on a racist model to think and respond to other Black people, specifically to Black women. And it's heartbreaking.
And I'm so glad you went into that, because I actually want to play something for everybody. I actually want to play something that happened on your live. And I want
there we go.
I want to play from your live, and I really want to. I've been holding it. I'm like, I really want to talk to him about that. So I'm actually going to play it, and I want to see what other people have to say about it. And so I'm gearing it up here. There it is. So play it here.
Support Black. We've got to support our own.
Well, I will take a break.
We have to support Black people. I'm all about that. We have to support Black businesses, but Black-owned businesses need to act like they got some sense sometimes too.
You're right, and this is a business that does.
Now, I'm just saying, because I've been to some Black-owned businesses and they want to act a little.
Yes, you're right.
I'm not going to talk right. So
talk about that.
The Black people want to support the Black businesses, but they don't want to act accordingly. And they want to make things in their own rules.
I can attest. The only reason I go to this place is because, not just because they're Black, but they're Black and they do it right.
There are Black businesses that are rude and have poor customer service, and there are white businesses that are rude and have poor customer service. No business has a color.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying majority. Okay, I am going to say
I have to call out the racism.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Because I am an equity warrior.
I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of Black-owned businesses, okay, they got a little rudeness to them. Okay.
Okay, but let me explain some of them. I'm not trying to take up for them, but I will say, listen, I will say, if we go to Macy's at South DeKalb Mall and have a bad experience, we can go to the Macy's at Atlantic Station and probably get a better experience.
You mean Lenox Mall?
You racist too.
Oh, they don't have one? I'm thinking of Dillard's. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But what I mean is they have more options. We don't. But
CJ, Tracy, racist.
No, he's not.
Racist.
No, that is not.
Let me explain.
We need to.
It is not fair. It
Black.
is not fair to collectively group any people together and say that Black businesses give you a rude experience, because you go to one Black business. Let's guess what? If you go to, and I'm not using, we're gonna go to.
Use Chick-fil-A for an example.
I'm gonna use the nappy root.
Chick-fil-A, guarantee if they do something wrong, which is far and few, they'll go ahead and fix it. Okay.
CJ, I don't eat racist, homophobic chicken.
First of all, how do you know?
So, I wanted to I wanted to bring that because when I watched that, and there's actually people. I need you to go. First of all, I need y'all to go follow Zachary and go and please watch his lives. Please follow his Facebook page, follow his Instagram, TikTok, and all.
It's a different feel, right, DeAndre, than PickEd Speaks. This is very classy, established platform, very professional.
For the most part,
that's a little different type of conversation.
But I'm interested in. It drew interest to me because, and again, there's more to that conversation. So again, you all please go to Zachary's page to listen to the conversation, and they even actually have a follow-up portion of the conversation. But I was curious to know, I guess, where did that conversation stem from?
It was so organic. It came from nowhere. That was not a part of, we do a show lineup and agenda. We have pre-formatted topics. We go through our topics. That absolutely came out of nowhere. It just simply was us saying, Tracy had on the show every Thursday, we recommend products and things to anyone who's watching. And so we were, Tracy went to a Black-owned farmers market in South Fulton, called Urban Roots Farm. And so she said we should all go together in our masks, not in the same cars, meet up there. We did. And that's how it started. And she was saying it's Black owned. We had to support Black owned. And then it became where CJ was pointing out that sometimes Black businesses don't give us good customer service. And that's where it went. My argument was that you can't say that. Like, it's not appropriate to say that Black businesses do anything. Just like it's really not appropriate to say that Black people do anything. Because exactly as Chris states, that's not what we say about other cultures. We can go to 20 different white establishments and get treated horribly. And we may go back, we may not go back, but what we don't say is that all white businesses do something, because we don't classify businesses that are owned by white entrepreneurs as white. We consider them businesses. Mm-hmm. Why don't we do that exact same thing for Black-owned entrepreneurs and Black-owned businesses? When you dig deeper, most other cultures and communities don't do it either. You don't hear members of the Korean American community or the Korean community saying all Korean businesses do X, Y, or Z, or all Korean American businesses do this. But we are very quick as a community to do that to other Black-owned businesses because of how we have been conditioned to respond to each other. And it is rooted in the systemic oppression that we have faced historically in America. And if we're going to break free of oppression, we have to be at the forefront of doing so. And that's my argument. And I have committed myself in this season of uprising to doing that for myself.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted, I left this second portion of the comment that Chris put up there, because when she said that's not to say we shouldn't patronize Black business, that just means find another Black business who does the same thing, who can provide the same services. Black people play too much. And I want to be very clear. I also know Chris, and I know there was a dam somewhere in there. And so I'm just saying that. I know it was one in there. She just didn't want to put it on the Facebook. But I get it, and I do agree with that. I think, again, lumping every organization, every business into one is absolutely asinine to believe that. And as you have said on that sense, yeah, I do agree. Yeah, there is a thing about sensible customer service. We get that, and everything else may be. How it be soever, it doesn't stop you from not going to the same place. I'll be very honest. I remember there's McDonald's not too far from right down the street from my house. And unfortunately, I had some very piss poor customer service recently. And I was irritated about it. How it be soever, a couple of days later, I went there to go get a caramel mocha. After I told myself that I wasn't going to, I'm not going to go there anymore, but I did anyway. And so, for us to kind of put ourselves in this, I may not, it's stupid. And again, you kind of went into, we're trained. I think we are definitely conditioned to definitely push that. But I kind of want to do something right now.
You think, before you say, DeAndre, I'll say this. Now, I do not believe in going back and giving any of my money is very valuable to me. Some people, money matters a lot to me. It really does. I think that it is the key to freedom for a number of people is your economic ability to flex and have the financial means to do the things that you need and want to do. Therefore, I am not going to spend any money with any patron, black, white, or other, or anything in between that isn't going to be either in my best interest or who isn't going to give me a good experience. And everyone gets one chance, and you really only get one chance. Mm-hmm. So I'm never going, like when you went to that McDonald's, I wouldn't be able to go back to that McDonald's. I don't care. I would have to just go ahead and make me a pot of coffee and pour me in a little bit of sugar and pretend like it's caramel sauce, because I won't be going back. And that's me. Yeah. I am someone who's been like that my whole life. My mom even reiterated that on the Sunday follow through when she said, "Yep, he sure will." Like when I say I'm done, I'm done. I'm not going to patronize or give my money. I'm not going to give my money. And I believe that people should do that. But the point is, don't say you're going to do that with just black businesses. Be fair and equitable across the board and do it for every business, period.
Well, since we're talking about black businesses, we're talking about, of course, this whole concept of Blackout Tuesday. I'm taking a second to take a quick break. I actually want to promote a black business. So we'll be right back right after this. Pay attention to this commercial. PickEd Speaks. We'll be right back.
Hey, y'all. I just want to come on and show a Black-owned business to support called Body Crystals Co. I love their body souffles. They are my favorite thing to moisturize with. I refuse to use anything else at this point. They are really nourishing for my skin, and they make the biggest difference I've ever seen. They smell amazing, and the texture on the product is really light and fluffy, and it's full of nourishing butters and oils, all natural ingredients, guys, and a little goes a long way. Look at how it just sinks into my skin. I assure you, that shoulder felt amazing. It doesn't leave a greasy feeling at all, and it gives a nice, deep, penetrating moisture, and it lasts a long time. It's good for the ashiest of ankles, I promise. And you can use it on your face and your hair. This stuff is really multifunctional. Go show us some love. All right, power to the people.
All right, so
I love that commercial. I'm gonna have to get some for these ashiest of ankles. I loved it.
So just so you all know, that is Body Crystals Co., who is actually one of today's sponsors for today's episode. Body Crystals Co., the artist in body care. Again, I also use Body Crystals. So that's why I look fine and sexy and smooth and all that jazz. But also, she does amazing work for the community as well. So please make sure that you cop that information from her.
And I can find her on Instagram.
Yes, and Instagram. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. She is, if you want to go to Instagram and Facebook, right here at Body Crystals Co. I have it on the screen right now. So if you want to go to her, you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. She also, again, has a website. It's www.bodycrystalsco.com. So please make sure you all go today and get some of that. So with that, I did also mention that we, again, across the nation, that we are hearing everyone is being, we're doing is what we call Blackout Tuesday, where they're asking all individuals to patronize black businesses and make, but be very mindful. Even though we're using tomorrow as the day to buy black, there is absolutely no reason why you should not be doing that consistently. Don't just necessarily make it a day. Make sure you continuously finding spaces and avenues to support black businesses, because again, just as you would buy it everywhere else, why not buy from the same individuals? And so please make sure you do that. But Zachary, what I wanted to wait till after the break. I actually want to open up a segment that we call the Lunchbox Talk. I actually want to open our lunchbox. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're opening the Lunchbox Talk. So this segment is Lunchbox Talk. What happens is we have you all email us questions, comments, concerns, or just things you feel you want help on. And you can do that by emailing us at speakout@sexynerdco.com. Again, that's speakout@sexynerdco.com. Send that email to us, and maybe your question may get asked. And we do ask that you can either give your name and your handle, or you can send anonymously. Today, we did actually have a viewer who does watch. She wanted to be anonymous, but she did send the email. And the email said this: Dear Dr. D, how are you? I love the show. Thank you so much for providing this platform. I particularly loved the conversation you had with the young men 2 weeks in a row. Those conversations were timely and much needed. I wish you all great success, and especially those young men. However, I have a question for you. The question I have is this: I saw on your message that a parent reached in talking about her son who was entering high school for the first time as a freshman, and getting advice from those young men as it pertains to him entering high school. Well, I too have a high schooler going in the fall because of the fact that the COVID has plagued our existence, and my son may or may not be going in traditional classrooms tomorrow. I am curious, however, about this. My son has definitely identified he had identified being a part of the LGBTQ community. I love my son like none other. Sorry. How it be soever, that is not everyone's philosophy. The question I have for you is, how do I encourage my son to be his authentic self without feeling as if he has to shut himself down to conform to other people's views? Again, I love each and every show that you do, and I will continue to watch. Thank you so much, Concerned Mom. So this was a very, and she kind of went into some more, kind of narrowed it down some, but she kind of went into also a conversation where he's always been kind of different because of the fact that he has enjoyed things that, like the arts, and it wasn't things that other people found to be kind of weird and quirky. And so I'm just curious to know, before I kind of tackle this, what would you say to this mom, being someone who's been in the educational system and kind of had to see bullying and seeing things from a different perspective? What would you say to this mom?
First, that I would say she needs to pick up the phone and call me, because this is a complicated, deep question, and it is a lot of things to say. So first off, she's already, really laying down the foundation, and 70% of the struggle that he is going to face has been solved in the fact that he has a supportive home environment. And it's essential that she gives him a supportive home environment, and that she continues to let him grow into the authentic man that he is meant to be. Mm-hmm. I do agree I love when she said that she wants him to be his authentic self, and she wants his own light to shine, because so many people in the LGBTQIA+ community are taught to hide or to diminish themselves, or to not let a true authentic sense of who they are ever even emerge, ever. In their whole life, it never is allowed to be, because society has wanted to stifle them. And it's still socially acceptable to bully, and still socially acceptable to mock and make fun of people in that community. And thankfully, we are seeing shifts being made in society for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. But hopefully that will also bring forward every other marginalized group along the way, so that we can truly move away from the stereotypes and issues that plague every single person who is disenfranchised in our nation. So she's 70% there. Whether or not he is going to allow his light to be dimmed is 100% going to be his decision. And she has to know that, and let him own that. That makes sense. It is my belief. As a parent, you can't protect or shield your child from the harsh realities of this unjust world that we live in. But what you can do as a parent is fight against that injustice for every future child who is yet to be unborn. To be honest, we would want her child to be in an environment where tolerance and understanding was there and ignorance didn't exist. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. The ancestors just haven't won that battle. So what she can do is now start a push towards understanding, tolerance, and teaching as a parent for kids who are unborn, and encourage her child to be his authentic self and to stand up for himself and to fight his battles accordingly. But he's gonna fight some battles. So it can't be avoided. It's going to happen. And I've seen it through the entirety of my career. And I do believe I'll see it for the remainder of my life. I don't think that I will live long enough to see a moment in time where members of the LGBTQIA+ community are harassed by someone. Like, I don't think I'll live long enough to see where members of the Black community don't face systemic racism. But I do believe that I can live long enough to make an impact and start to diminish its role for both communities. And I ask that she does the exact same thing. And she needs to allow her son also to have honest dialogue with her that is free of judgment. And he's growing up, he's entering high school, and she's going to have to find a good balance between friendship and parenthood. And I think that's what that's what all parents kind of have to do in the high school space, whether their child identifies as, LGBTQIA+ or not. They have to find that balance, and it's really hard for a lot of parents.
And one of the things that, because when I got this email, I had to sit on it for a second because of the fact that some of the other things that were shared in the email, again, for the sake of time, I condensed it to the most pressing issues. But some of the things that this mom was talking about in this particular email, it took me back because of the fact that this particular young man, what the world viewed as different is normal. I found that so interesting to me.
But you have to, DeAndre, you got to look at it too from this point of view. That is it what the world considers, or is what she considers? And if it is what she considers, she has to do some unpacking for herself, and she has to do her mind has to also open. Like, there is nothing abnormal with any, young man being interested in art or the arts or any of those creative pursuits. There's nothing wrong with any young man being interested in entertainment or any of these things. And so that's something that many parents have to kind of unpack and pull apart to look at their own biases. And you have to constantly examine yourself, and you have to constantly go back to your own childhood, your own experiences to look at, why do I think this? And why? First, you have to say, why do you believe something? Then you got to look at what made you believe that? And then you got to examine to what extent you should believe it or not. And that's an ongoing life process. And I feel as though we don't encourage that level of thought in the Black community enough, and we have to start.
And speaking of arts, shout out, I actually just saw her log in. Shout out to my former chorus teacher and chorus director, Garnetta Penn, from the Benjamin Elijah Mays High School.
Miss Penn, how are you doing? It's great that you joined us. You better say something in the comments. Like, I love the
Benjamin Elijah Mays High School.
I've loved her for a long time. She has done amazing work in Atlanta public schools, and I've always been a fan and rooted for her, even when she didn't know I was rooting for her.
Yeah, I'll tell that quick story. I actually became her student director before she even knew I was student director.
Wow.
She was actually out on sick leave, and I had moved to Georgia, moved to Atlanta, and Mr. Tommy Ross, who was the student director, who was the director of the choruses before her, he was the first director of Mays High School. He came back to help and assist, and he ended up making me student director of the courses 2 weeks of me being there. And her first time actually seeing me was me directing at a concert. And she came and she was saying hi to all the kids, like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And she looked at me and said, "Hey, how are you? Who are you?"
Sounds all right.
Didn't know who I was. But on the flip side of that, the first day she came back from being on sick leave, when she came and I saw her, I went and sat in my seat. And she looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You're back." She said, "What were you doing before I got here?" I said, "I guess being student director." Said, "What makes that change?" I got behind the piano and started warm-ups and everything else. And we have been close and connected, for all these years. So again, I appreciate her. But I say all that to go back to the fact that one thing about this mom that I want her to know is first and foremost, you have, as Zachary said, you've conquered half of the battle, which was being a supportive parent. You know, at the end of the day, there's so many parents who, so many young people who don't have that, or it takes a long time to get there. And whether that be, again, that young person being a part of the LGBTQIA+, or just in general, just anything that's different than what we classify as the social norm, if you will. One of the things I appreciate growing up, my mom had me very young. My mom had me at 17 years old. And my mom was a young mom. And I tell this story often, is that I was always interested in different things. And the one thing, and people would always tell my mom, you better put them in these sports, you better put them in that, you don't want them, doing that. And I liked sports, granted, but there were so many other things I liked as well. I ran track, I did wrestling, and I did baseball. I did the sports, but I also loved dance. I loved singing. I loved the arts. And my mom never stopped me from doing that. And because she never stopped me from doing that, I got a chance to do things like perform with Ray Charles, Jerry Orbach, got a chance to be in things with Danny Glover. These are things that I'm doing, at 14, 13 years old, because she allowed me to express me and do me. I got a chance, my name, if you go back home from Cincinnati, if you go back home to Cincinnati, my name is on the placard outside the wall of the Arnoff Center at the Fifth Third Bank area, because we were the first person to ever perform in that theater. Little small things like that. And so embracing that young person's creativity, embracing that person's love for themselves is going to help. But also, being real with him and understanding that everybody in the world is not going to accept. Everybody in the world is not going to love you. And you have to learn how to even press through those. I've had issues with family members and friends, but but you said it earlier in the broadcast, much earlier, but God has specific timing and things for everyone.
For everyone, period.
And it's not going to, and if God is ordained you to do it, and if it's in his plans for you, there's nothing that no one can say or do that can stop the very thing that he's going to have for you.
We often hear in education how school is a safe haven and school is a solace for some kids who have challenges and disruptions at home and chaos in the home. But it can be also the reverse. If her son goes to school and is experiencing bullying and rejection, home should be his safe haven and his solace, where he feels safe, where he's rejuvenated and restored, where his sense of self is continually developed so that he can put on the armor that he needs to go back to school and fight those battles. And it should not be that way, but it can be that way. And she can create that environment for him so that he can come home, get everything that he needs to get off his chest, and he can move forward and then be able to handle what he deals with. It is heartbreaking to me to see the level of bigotry, ignorance, and homophobia in the Black community leveled at Black people who are in the LGBTQIA+ community by parents. When I have never to this day, and I will never support Kevin Hart. And again, I am not normal, DeAndre. Like, I'm not normal. Like, I don't even proclaim it. When I'm a Scorpio. We will hold a grudge for life. It will be a lifelong grudge. It is. And I mean, it's who I am, and I accept it.
Hold on, your birthday is when?
November 3rd. It's going to be election day when God is going to give me a new president. And so when I say I'm not going to eat somewhere, I'm not going to ever eat there. When I tell you I will never support Kevin Hart again because he said if his son was gay, he would hit him over the side of the head with a dollhouse, I will never support Kevin Hart again. But that type of behavior is exceptionally more common. And young children are committing suicide and taking their lives because they don't have a safe haven to go to. They go to school and they're bullied and they face continuous attacks and assaults from children and from even their teachers. And then they come home and it's reinforced. There is nowhere for them to be. And they don't have the discernment to see that this is going to get better because nothing in their life has given them the hope that it would. We cannot continue to fail generation after generation after generation of young, intelligent, articulate gay children because of the systemic homophobia and racism that runs rampant in our world. We have to stop it. So I'm thankful this parent is expressing this, and I hope that more parents will do the same thing, because all they're doing is causing their children long-term harm that cannot be undone. And again, he's going to have to decide whether or not he's going to let his light be extinguished. But unfortunately, I really believe that more people than not allow society to take away their light and their talents than who continue to push forward and fight, because it's really hard to fight and it's really easy to give up. And that's why so many people, even when they are living, they've given up. They have let society take away that light. Like how you were saying that, there are people saying, oh, you should be in sports, but that wasn't your calling. Like I look at all of these, this is a real fundamental core belief that I have, is that everything that you're drawn to it because it's a part of God's plan in your life. Like when you're born on day one, there's a purpose over your life. And because of original sin, you now have choices and can deviate from that purpose. And not only do you have choices, but society can take you off your path as well. Children naturally gravitate towards the things that they're meant to do. So if you naturally gravitate towards music, you're probably likely that's where God is part of your path. DeAndre, I can't sing a note. You will never in your life hear me raise my voice to the Lord in song. When I'm in church, I am mouthing the words to Amazing Grace because it sounds so awful when I sing it. But also it's not my passion. God never put in my heart to be on American Idol, because God knows, and I know that's not where I'm meant to be. But when you think about all the things that people do and how you condition your children, let them follow their own passions and let them go in that direction, because that is the ordained God direction that he's meant for them to be in. I was talking to one of my former students, and I'll conclude, and she was telling me about her daughter who wants to be, her daughter wanted to be, they had a virtual, what I want to be when I grow up. The baby's maybe first grade, second grade. She wants to be a hairstylist. That is, if that's what she's saying she wants to do and where she wants to go, encourage it. Let God guide those steps, not you. Let the Lord order her steps. You don't order her steps. If that's what she wants to be, you encourage her. And if it's not meant to be, she'll change her mind. But it shouldn't be something that you discourage or that you let her change her mind, because the voice of God inside our children is loud and clear. The older we get, we don't hear it as well anymore because we hear society in the background. And society can sound louder to those of us who are not in tune with the Lord than the Lord. And I don't mean to be so. I'm not like a super Bible thumping person. I think I'm not. But this conversation is just lending to those core truths that I hold so dear.
And I don't even want to touch. I don't want to say anything after that because of the fact it was so on point. Because of the fact that I'll leave it at that because it was just what it was. But again, if you or anyone you know would like to actually ask us a question, we are here each and every Monday. But please send your messages to speak out at sexynerdco.com. Again, send your messages to speak out at sexynerd.co.com, and we will maybe be able to broadcast your question. At this time, I'm actually going to close the lunchbox, and this is that portion of Lunchbox Talk. But I wanted to make sure I highlighted someone who came online because of the fact that, and I hope she is still here because I know she's watched. Hopefully she's still here. She did comment. Sheila Gunn. There it is. She is. Okay, she just commented, so she is still here. She is someone. She started out as a family friend and turned out into family because she ended up marrying into the family. And when I tell you, one of the few people in my life outside of my mother who genuinely loved me for me. When I tell you, there was a kindredship, a connectionship there. And she genuinely loved me for me in whatever capacity that looked like. You know, sometimes I might have been dead wrong, but she still loved me. And I appreciate her being in our lives. I appreciate her still being there. You know, even though she and my grandfather are divorced, but she stayed, you know, she still was a family.
Wait, Sheila was married to your grandfather?
Yeah.
Sheila looks real young. Sheila, oh my goodness. You know, you need to get, where is Sheila from?
Sheila is from, Sheila, you from Cincinnati? No, I can't remember. No, you're not from Cincinnati, Sheila. Where
Sheila
you?
has some of those original genes from the ancestors.
Yes.
She is blessed with the original genes.
Is it from Mississippi, Sheila? I can't remember. Is it Mississippi? Please, I think it's Mississippi, Sheila. Please tell me if that's correct. If it's Mississippi, remind me, because I know. Please just remind me. You know, just, you know, and you know, it was just love there. And again, to have those people in your, you know, in your life, it was.
Sheila, I'm from Mississippi too. I'm from Mississippi as well.
I did tell you that I did.
Mississippi State.
I did tell you I did. I was an adjunct at Mississippi State for a while.
No, I didn't know that.
I was an adjunct, and I taught there. I was there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I was here Friday through Monday.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I was in the sociology department.
Did you enjoy Mississippi State?
Me?
Yes.
They paid very well.
Mississippi State is an above ground institution, and they do a good job. I'm sure they probably treated you with great hospitality, which is what the state is known for. But did you like Mississippi State?
So in all in essence, I liked it. I liked it for a couple of reasons. One, I liked it because of the library, because of the fact that there's so much history in that library. And my family's from Mississippi. And so many people who don't know, my cousin is, you all know, we know him as Lavelle Crump. You all know him as David Banner. But all of their family is in Mississippi. They also are educators. A lot of them are educators in Mississippi and California. And so one of my cousins who I met through there, she's not his sister, she's his cousin, but somebody else. But we did some research on our family, and we actually wrote, we're still in the process of writing an actual book on the history of our family. Our family actually was a part of the AME church. They actually have an AME church named after our family there. That family lives on an actual compound. So that family actually owns that land.
In what city in Mississippi?
Oh, Jesus.
I know about all our 82 counties, every county.
Not Meridian. Oh, Jesus. It's not Meridian. I have to get back to you on that.
It's by Meridian?
I think it's by Meridian. I can't.
I'm from that area. You got Meridian, you got Philadelphia, you got Louisville, you got DeKalb, where I'm from. You got, none of that sounds familiar?
Yeah, I want to say it's Meridian. I got to check and see again. But we're ultimately writing just kind of a family historical kind of document and using that because it's just interesting to see. Now, speaking of Mississippi and speaking of your home state is changing its flag.
You know, I'm glad you bring that up. So, one, I'm a graduate of Mississippi State, and I want to congratulate Mississippi State for always being on the right side of history. There's another, we have the University of Southern Mississippi, another university that I'm proud of and have great things to say because it's a very diverse PWI, predominantly white institution. There's another of the three states flagships. There's one school that's up north. We call it the school up north because I won't ever say the name of the school, but they're known for their racism and they have a history of continuing that racism. And even, it's an awful place. When that school was refusing to allow James Meredith to be a student there, Mississippi State quietly opened the doors to Richard Holmes, who became a noted Black doctor and surgeon in Mississippi. Richard Holmes. I was the recipient of in my graduating class, I received the Richard Holmes Spirit Embodiment Award because the faculty felt that I was a student who most embodied his ideas. It went to one Black student a year. And so even back in the 60s, we were on the right side of history. Mississippi State has supported changing that flag since 2015 verbally, but even before that, they were pushing that direction. It was a student, Colin Hill, who is the top running back at Mississippi State and one of the top in the nation, who actually told the SEC, if you don't make Mississippi change its flag, I am leaving and going to an HBCU. So just shouting out Mississippi in general, the Mississippi State, but not shouting out Mississippi. Mississippi should be ashamed that they are changing their flag in 2020. Mm-hmm. This is something that should have happened in 2012 when it was first raised to be changed, but the voters didn't do it. And it shouldn't have gone to a vote because of the oppressive nature of the majority of that citizenry and the way that systemic racism and oppression has impacted the Black people who live in the state. Let me explain that and break that down just a little bit for everyone there. Mississippi is known for its racism, made famous by the film Mississippi Burning. My mother still works to this day in the town of Philadelphia, where many of those ancestors live, like where the people that did those crimes. She works with those people. They know and remember their grandfather doing this and their great grandfather. These are her friends now. Like they are friends and they're cordial. I'll probably even take a piece of this clip and tag her in it so they can see it. Despite that history of racism and that reputation of racism, Mississippi is also extremely hospitable and kind. And this is the reality. If most of the people there are poor, period. Whether you're Black or white, you're poor. There is a deficit of resources and a deficit of education. If there's anywhere in America where people should be able to coalesce around common understanding and move the state forward, it's Mississippi. But because of racism and the systemic nature of racism, the state is held back at a disproportionate rate. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, I tell my mother that we are right now living in 2000. We are in the year 2000 in Mississippi in regards to healthcare for those people, in regards to internet Wi-Fi for the people that live in the state, in regards to commerce and industry. They are 20 years behind the rest of America. And they're going to continue to stay behind because they are living in the shadow of racism. The flag is a great step forward, but it's only one step. The commentary and the Facebook posts and the ignorance that have come out of people fighting and angry about this flag are embarrassing. And I will tell you, I have had a number of Black people post in support of that flag. People that I grew up with, people that I know. So I can't applaud Mississippi for changing the flag when it's 20 years too late. I can't. In addition to that, I want to emphasize that Mississippi has the largest percentage of Black people living in that state than any other state in America. What that means is this: if every Black person organized and came together around common goals, there should be nothing they can achieve, but they will not do it. The same thing goes for Mississippi. You have the largest percentage of African-American elected officials of anywhere in the United States of America as well. That means that those elected officials are failing their people, but I can't blame those people because they have been so oppressed by systemic racism that it is going to be a very difficult push to really liberate your mind from that. And that's the work that's ahead of all of us. Because we're not free until we are all free. If one is enslaved, we're all enslaved. So we have a lot of work left to do. And again, when the level of lynching and violence that happened in the 60s, it's still to this day legendary. And Republican politicians are continuing to do this damage to people to this day. When we had the beginning of the COVID crisis and lockdown, I swear it's so unfortunate, but literally the week after it was revealed that members of the Black and brown community were being affected at a higher rate is the week that we decided we're going to open back up. The next week we open back up. Mm-hmm. That screams racist and racism. It screams it. And every single thing now that we're seeing in the news that's being espoused by our president is continuing to reinforce a lot of racist rhetoric. We have a lot of work to do, a long way to go.
And I was going to go somewhere else, but you mentioned
take us there. I mean, I have time for it. I'm going
to go somewhere else, but I'm going to go back to what you just said a second ago because you said the current, and I expressed this. I unfortunately took the time out of my day to actually watch the speech at Mount Rushmore.
I watched it too. It was
I took my time out to actually watch it. And what scares me is what, unfortunately, there was clear rhetoric being spoken. There was clear stuff being spoken that, unfortunately, even though his base was listening to and they were eating it up, we also heard it from a different space because of the fact that, some of the things that he continued to spew out there literally spoke racism.
DeAndre, they heard the same thing that we heard. They heard it and they support it, and because they are racist. Donald Trump is a white supremacist. If you support Donald Trump, you too are a white supremacist, period. And I don't care if you're black or white. Diamond and Silk, white supremacist. Herman Cain, who you praying for with the COVID, white supremacist. These people are white supremacists, period. Period. So they heard the same thing that you heard. They heard him say that the Black Lives Matter movement was a terrorist movement, that the leftist organizations under the presumption of diversity and under the presumption of social justice were going to change America for the radical left and for fascism. He is literally saying that he does not want social justice in this world. Mm-hmm. And there is no excuse for it. That's why Francesca speaks truth to power. Again, he's a racist and a white supremacist, and so are his supporters. And we have to not let these people off the hook. I made a TikTok on Saturday night because I was so pissed off at that speech. And I understand. I don't agree with, but I understand people who have been so conditioned and raised to be white supremacists, and they feel like this is their very last moment of existence. And guess what, DeAndre? It is. Even if Donald Trump wins re-election, which he will not, but even if he did, the moment of white supremacy is coming to an end because young people understand the dangers of white supremacy, black, white, and everything in between. There are more of us who are on the right side of history, and there are more of us who are going to continue this fight and not give up because our lives really do depend on it, that it will not last after the Trump administration. Even if he gets a victory in this battle, he will not win the war. Hate never wins, but we have to endure and push through this very, very challenging moment. In that TikTok, because I was so angry, I didn't attack his white supremacist white people. I attack the black people who support him and who seek to brainwash other members of the black community and bring them over to the Donald Trump side. And I used the reference of a coon in the video that I made because that was a song that I found. And people were angry. I have received more negative comments on that clip from white people than anything else I ever produced on TikTok. One, I don't think people understand the origin of the word coon, coming from the concept of a barracoon, building enclosure where slaves, when you came over, you were stored in Florida in barracoons, and you were waiting to be moved to your plantation for enslavement. But there were a number of black people who thought they were being brought over for a better life. They thought they were coming to something better. So to me, a coon is any black person or person of color who thinks that the oppressor has something better planned for them once they are oppressed or enslaved than what they would get in freedom. So when I see Herman Cain, I do think of him as entrapped in a mental barracoon, waiting for something better to come from a white person than what actual liberation and freedom in his mind would be. And I say that to say there are so many of us that are just as guilty and just as enslaved and who are upholding white supremacy. And we've got to stop it. We've got to work hard to dismantle it so that this disease cannot continue in our children or doesn't continue in our children.
And it's just, for me, I didn't even know how to I watched it because, again, I'm also a firm believer, even though I necessarily cannot stand the stuff that comes out. One of the things I'm also a firm believer of, especially as an educator and also as a sociologist, you can't argue something or you can't speak to something that you know nothing about. So I need to be able to hear what you're saying so I know how to actually speak to what you're saying. So as many as I say, well, he's not, I want to hear him. I still need to hear him because I still need to be able to hear exactly what it's saying, because you can't just based on what everybody else is saying. But with that, I'm looking at going back to elections and going to politics. We just got the Supreme Court just made a decision that the electorates have to now follow the rule of whatever your state electorate is, you now have to follow that popular vote. Are we a little too late, or is it better now late than never?
It's better late than never. That is going to set things up again. I can't see a scenario, and I'm concerned about I'm concerned about Vice President Biden doing a head-to-head debate with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is excellent at his rhetoric. He knows how to use that rhetoric to appeal to his base very well. He knows how to use rhetoric to divide America. That is his strength. He knows how to employ rhetoric to sow seeds of fear and derision. And I don't know if I have yet to see any evidence that Vice President Biden knows how to use rhetoric for any purpose, period. Like, I haven't seen any evidence that he can do that at any level. So I am concerned about the debates. But even with that being said, I do not see any scenario where President Trump is going to be able to win re-election. Mm-hmm. I have been researching polls vigorously. There has not been but one case in history since 1940 where the polls at this point, as of July 4th of the election year, were wrong. And that was the Truman against Dewey poll. They showed Truman down at this point by 9 points. Currently, Trump is down by 14 points. Truman closed it up, and right at the election, he was 5 points below Dewey, and he ended up winning. But I still believe that even that was an anomaly. I don't see a situation where Trump is going to win. Also, anytime, and we have lived through two situations, DeAndre, where a president has won the electoral college but lost a popular vote. So for us now, we think that's common, but that too is oftentimes a political fluke. It is exceptionally rare and uncommon for someone to win the presidency and lose the electoral college. The first time it happened for us, more than likely, it was a result of illegal actions in Florida. Mm-hmm. With Trump winning it, it was influenced by third-party candidate Jill Stein in Michigan, but it was also a huge part of the interference of the FBI under Comey in that election. So I just don't see this happening again. I think that we are on track to have President Biden take office, to see him hopefully appoint a dream team of leaders, Black, white, and everything in between, to serve in his cabinet. And we will be given the ultimate responsibility of holding them all to a very high level of accountability. And we have to mobilize ourselves right now and be prepared to ensure that every single person who is placed in office is accountable to us for what we want to see America become, period.
And who needs to be that VP? Who needs to be that? Does it need to be Black woman? Does it need to be a white woman? What do we need in that seat to make sure that we not secure the seat, but how can we feel secure, I guess, if you will?
Yeah, we need someone who is ready to be president on day one. We cannot ignore the fact that Vice President Biden is 78 years old. We need someone who is experienced and well-versed in the way government works to take that seat. Does it have to be? I'm going to vote for Joe Biden no matter what, okay? Joe Biden can go to Mississippi and slap my mama, slap both my sisters, and then go down the line slapping niece, nephew, niece, nephew, okay? I'm still going to vote for Joe Biden. However, I believe personally that Kamala Harris is best suited to serve as Vice President of the United States. Number one, I do want to see a Black woman get that job because of how Black women have supported and stood behind not only Vice President Biden, but the Democratic Party. And I believe they owe a debt to the Black community that should be paid to the Black woman. That is my belief, especially in this time of so much hatred being leveled towards our Black female leaders. In addition to that, Kamala Harris has done some things in her career that mark her as an exemplary leader. Number one, Kamala Harris was able to provide increased housing opportunities to minority people in San Francisco and California through legislation that she led as a prosecutor. She has been able to not only get, at a time when people were struggling to hold on to homes, she increased home ownership significantly in the Black community. That is something that I think she can be proud of. It's a great piece of her legacy. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, has a record of achievement that rivals any other attorney general at her time. And again, she was leading during a recession. In addition to that, she has won statewide office in California. She's the only Black female senator and one of only 2 Black people in the Senate. It is not easy to win statewide office. In Georgia, we have 0 Democrats in an elected position statewide. 0 Democrats and 0 people of color. Not one. Not one. We are so focused sometimes in the Atlanta area on the Blackness of our community in Atlanta, but we don't look holistically. Again, 0 Democrats hold statewide elected office in Georgia and 0 people of color in Georgia. That is common across the United States, when we only make up 13% of the U.S. population. For Senator Harris to win statewide office as Attorney General in California, exemplary. For her to win a Senate seat in highly competitive California, exemplary. She knows how to work the system to her advantage and to the advantage of her agenda. We need a vice president who knows how to work the system on our behalf. People who don't like Kamala, I'm telling you, I literally asked a friend of mine when I said I endorse Kamala, and he said, I just don't like her. And I said, why? I don't know something about her. Well, I know why you don't like her. Because she's a strong Black woman who doesn't fit the mold that you want her to fit. She doesn't come across the way you want her to come across. And that's the problem that a lot of Black people have with her. And it really makes me sick. Because they're not looking at her record, they're not looking at her credentials, and they're not looking at her for who she is. They're looking at her for who they want her to be. Mm-hmm. We don't do that to white politicians. We don't try to make them fit our mold. Mm-hmm. And no one's going to be the ideal person for every single Black person. We need to stop. If we can't have Kamala, I think Susan Rice is a strong candidate. But not as qualified as Kamala. I think that Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is a strong candidate for a cabinet position, but not prepared and ready for vice presidency.
I'm going to poke the bear.
Yeah, poke the bear. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Go poke the bear.
That's the point. That's why I'm
here. I'm going to poke the bear. And why do you feel that we keep feeling as if we need to put these not as qualified candidates up to be the potential VP nominees, such as the socially acceptable favorite, Stacey Abrams?
Stacey, you've seen. I'm going to share this, guys. I am not a fan of Stacey Abrams, and again, I am choosing to raise my voice and happy to accept the responsibility of the criticism that brings. And even though Stacey Abrams is very popular, she is popular nationally because people don't know her record. And I had a friend, I pissed her off. I know I pissed my good friend Jamel off. But Stacey Abrams isn't qualified to be anybody's vice president just simply because she's able to take a national stage and she can articulate. There are many Black people who can articulate and speak very well. But that doesn't make you qualified. Let me give you a solid, real reason as to why I cannot say I endorse Stacey Abrams for a whole lot at this moment. I have followed Georgia politics since I moved to this state in 2002. I was here when Roy Barnes was our governor, and I saw Sonny Perdue take that seat. I was there when Stacey Abrams was elected, and I want to say she took a House seat in 2007, maybe 6 or 7. It may have been as early as 2004. I'm not, it all runs together. But in her time as Speaker of the Georgia legislative body's minority leader, she was the highest ranking Democrat in our state. And during that time frame, she was not effective, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So much so that in 2015, when the state had to do the redistricting, she allowed 2 predominantly Democratic minority-owned seats to be abolished and washed away. When it happened and passed, she said she did not even know it was on the table because she had not read the bill. It was at that point I said I would not be able to support and endorse her. I absolutely voted for Stacey Abrams against Brian Kemp, who held a gun on television saying that he was going to kill immigrants. But I did not support Stacey Abrams in the primary. I voted for Stacey Evans, who grew up in a trailer, who was a white woman, who came into my barbershop on the West End and asked me to vote for her. She had my vote in the primary. And I am not ashamed to admit it. I'm proud of it because I don't vote based on what anyone thinks I should. I vote based on what I know to be right.
And before I get to Chris's comment and question,
it's Chris, my good buddy Chris, say.
Before I get to the comment and question, I want to. I'm in the boat because there's some other things you didn't really hit, and I know you wanted to hit. There's some other things you didn't hit about some situations, including the changing of the early voting. That was all done under that, and that was kind of politicized. And so there were some other things that was done.
Stacey gave in for her own purpose. Stacey, I hate this. I don't know her, but some of her decisions to me speak of self-servitude and not public servitude. It's very coincidental that so many of the things that have put her in prominence occur around the launch of a book. Very suspect to me. Like now you're considered for VP, but now your book comes out. In addition to that, Stacey Abrams conceded continuously when she was the minority leader of the House. She gave and she gave and she gave to Republicans. And I believe she was doing that to build coalitions and to build up herself to be the next governor. And so she was giving to these people and conceding instead of fighting back because it was good for her, but it wasn't good for the Democratic Party and it wasn't good for her community. We needed leadership at that time, and we did not have that representation in our state house.
And I had a hard time, even in that gubernatorial race. I had a very hard time about to whom I would support. And I knew both of the candidates because I worked down there and I knew both candidates. But I had a hard time because in my earnest opinion, I really wasn't satisfied with either. And I think that became, an unfortunate situation as well. Then we have to do a better job as even those of us who classify ourselves as Democrats, we have to do a better job with putting, people in place that not just because, again, for popularity and because of this, but because of the fact that we know for a fact that they're the best possible person for the role. Now, my only issue with the person, with Stacey Evans currently, and I don't have a issue with her. I don't have a thing against her personally. One of the things that I will say in this most recent election, I did not like the fact that, unfortunately, we still live in a world where people, white individuals, can feel as if they have this claim on certain things that I don't have to be a part of a thing and still become a thing. Meaning that, unfortunately, she lived in one area. One white woman who represented the area decided she was retiring. Just so happens that she had moved in there. She had retired a year after Stacey Evans had moved into the area, just for her to then qualify for the seat by another. And so that district now is about to be represented by another white woman that's predominantly African American community. And there were two African Americans ran for that seat, and an Asian American that ran for that seat, who had been working in that community.
That was Sam, right?
That was Alex Wan.
Alex Wan, yeah.
Alex Wan, and you had others in that seat in those areas who have been working in those communities. And here you are, you come in this community and and you had the treasure chest and everything else, and now you won the seat.
But that was after the governor's race.
Oh yeah, that was just my issue with
about her now.
Yeah, currently now.
I agree with you.
That's my issue there, and I
agree with that.
We got to do a better job with holding people to certain standards. Because my thing about it is, I don't care how many times you've been elected. If you're not for these people, then why am I putting you in position in place? That's just my thing. And you haven't shown me enough that you've been enough for these people. You just they were votes to you. They weren't people. They were votes to you, and that's that was kind of pissed me off about that seat, because I know people like Kyle Lamont who ran in that area. Again, I know Alex Wan.
Who are you endorsing?
So because of the fact that as a person, I was supporting Kyle.
Okay.
But I couldn't publicly, only because of the fact that because I am actually the chair of an organization that makes endorsements. I'd be very careful about how I quote unquote personally endorsed, but I did help behind the scenes. But I did support Kyle for that seat. One, because of the fact that I knew that he had worked diligently in that seat. But if it went into a runoff, because I know it was it could have been a long shot, because he also had 2 former elected officials in the race. I still supported him because I knew that he was great for that seat. If it got down to Alex Wan, I would have endorsed Alex Wan because of the fact that Alex Wan has been working in that community for 20 plus years.
It seems like his whole career. Yeah.
And so for me, I'm more about making sure that we put people who believe in my community, and then the position. And that was my concern. And I wish her well, but again, we've just went from one to another, and that's my whole thing.
For Chris, again, it needs to be a Black woman, in my opinion, because I want to see a Black woman in that position. Chris, it was a game changer for me as a Black man when President Barack Hussein Obama was elected to office. His entire rise was life-changing for me. And I don't know if that, for young people that didn't live through that, if they see it in the same way. To be honest, I don't think they do. Mm-hmm. And what I want to see young people of color experience that level of pride, whether the person is good or not, in having a person that looks like them in their office. I want a Black female for my nieces. Okay, I have a amazing 19-year-old niece who was valedictorian of her class. She graduated with a 60-hour associate's degree in biology before she started her first real college class. Before she graduated high school, she had graduated with an associate's. I want her to see that she can be and do anything that she wants to do. I have a 16-year-old niece who just today texted me about her increase in her ACT, and she isn't even in the 11th grade. I want her to know you can be president of this country. There is nothing that holds you back if God has put a dream in your heart that is yours, except yourself. And I think that's why I wanted to be a Black female more than anything else. If I'm really going to be honest with you and those who are watching, that's what I want. However, again, Joe Biden, now it says on Facebook, could appoint Carol Baskins, Republican from Florida, to be his vice president. And I'm still voting for him over Donald Trump and what's that man, Mike Pence.
And I received a lot of flack when President Obama ran in 2008 because of the fact I received flack because of the fact I actually was on the state campaign for Hillary Clinton. I received a lot of flack for that, simply because of the fact that, again,
that's interesting that we have that in common, because I also was a part of the original Hillary Clinton campaign to support.
And we eventually got moved over when we actually got moved over once we went to Denver, because I was part of the delegation. We went to Denver. Once we got back from Denver, we got moved over. But I was very clear about my reasoning. Again, I tell you all often, and we just said it here, I was about experience, and I was about what I believed, was best for the country. And I knew for what people did not give her credit for. And I don't care how people feel about her, even still to this day. One of the things that you cannot take away from her is that she was a clear mastermind in what was needed to get done. I've never seen a first lady ever leave from a state to the presidency to then become a senator, then become a secretary of state.
She climbed the ladder in the exact way that you are supposed to climb the ladder.
And people don't realize the hell. I don't know if anybody has seen the documentary that you need to go see her documentary because of
on Hulu. I've watched it.
The hell that she received, being the first lady in Arkansas and had to, she was an amazing and brilliant mind. And what people have to understand is she was dealing with women's rights and civil rights way before she met Bill Clinton. When she was Hillary Rodham, she was, a beast.
She was transformed by Martin Luther King Jr. Like so many people. She too was transformed and touched and became a warrior for civil rights. And she had missteps, but this is, I always tell people, you have to, when you critique and criticize, you have to look through the historical context of the time in which people lived. And you got to give them back credit and points for it. You have to, you have to. And so many people are unwilling to do that.
So I'm going to go off the cuff because we technically supposed to be done a long time ago, but I'm enjoying the conversation. So we're going to go off the cuff. I just wrote down some stuff because I was like, this was not even a part of the conversation, but it's kind of the after show. So please stay. So I'm now doing it kind of an after show. So thank you all for watching, but I'm kind of moving from it. There's some last things I want to hit you with because I've seen some posts and some other things. I'm just kind of curious about your take on it. Number one, no, I'm going to save that one. Let me go to this one. I'm going to put up a quote. I want your opinion about what do you believe? What is your take on this quote and what you think about this quote? The quote is, unpack what your impact is and is it inclusive? When you think about that quote, unpack what your impact is and is it inclusive?
Yeah.
What do you think of?
I think that we have to look both inwardly and outwardly. So I'm going to start first and foremost with an inward look because it says you have to look at your impact on this world. And you have to think, am I really having an impact on the world or is it myopic and singular? You cannot think that you're leaving a legacy if you only impact your small circle, your family, your friends, your Black community, your LGBTQIA plus community, whatever communities you involve, your church community. You have to go beyond that and you have to truly bring in others so that your impact is lasting. I have noticed, and so here's, and I'm gonna go outward in a minute, but when you even look to give you, I believe in backing things up with evidence, right? Because I'm an English teacher at heart. This past weekend, many of us who are watching, you saw our Black brothers and sisters were defending their Second Amendment rights to bear arms as they marched in Stone Mountain. Demonstrations were held across America of Black men and women carrying machine assault weapons as their freedom of speech. Freedom to bear arms, Second Amendment right is. And that's true. That's your Second Amendment right. But but by doing that, are you really having an impact that's inclusive? Or are you feeding into President Trump's rhetoric of a lawless Black state that wants to take away white people's freedoms and rights that we can't take away? What are we really doing by doing that? Now, I saw it reshared. I saw all the comments. It became a huge social media sensation. But we are 13% of the United States population. We are fighting continuously to grow, advance, and survive. We cannot move forward and defeat racism and break down systemic oppression alone. We need allies. We have always needed allies. The civil rights movement was not won by Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. It was won by a coalition of people that included white allies and every race in between to move us forward. We have to depend on one another so that we can truly have an America, period. And that's what that means on the outside. You right now have a president who wants to have an impact on his community. That's why he is stoking fear and showing derision, and he's doubling down on a racist message. But his impact will not last. Donald Trump is going to go down as the worst president in American history unless we elect someone after him that's worse. There is no doubt about that, regardless of whether he wins or not re-election. Children are in cages. The American economy is in ruins. And COVID-19 is taking people's lives every single day and getting closer and closer to home for all of us. He will go down as a horrible president, but he might win re-election because people would rather have a white man who is a racist in the White House than to see their stature in America decrease. And it's hard, and it's scary.
And unfortunately, his comment is not showing. I'm hate it's not showing. But Jason Tatum said, "You're my favorite, Dr. Kirk."
Jason is one of my favorites.
And so it's not showing here, but I'm like, it's down on my phone. I'm looking both. I was like, that's why I kept looking down, people. But Jason said, "You're his favorite." But that's what's interesting to me, because again, I think so many of us, we, when I ask this whole, when your impact is, I think so often when I was thinking about this quote, because every now and then I'll write down a quote and I'll put something and I'll just think about something. I'll kind of have my mind thinking. And it's so interesting to me that when I was thinking about this quote, I had to ask myself, when you, or in others, when you are looking at your goal to impact, and when you're looking at what it is where you want to leave your legacy, who are you excluding? Who are you excluding? Not necessarily say that you can't have it. Not saying that you can't leave an impact, but one of the things that when Dr. King left this world, he spoke a certain thing, but he wanted his impact to be felt everywhere.
Around the world, and it was.
He wanted his impact to be felt everywhere. When Harvey Milk in California was doing the work, he was working for a specific people, but he wanted his impact to be felt. When Marsha P. Johnson was doing the work with Stonewall, she was particularly hitting for a particular individual, a group. When you think about Malcolm X, and when you think about Harriet Tubman, and when you think about Fannie Lou Hamer, the list can just go on and on and on. Even though the area of focus was very clear, at the same time, it never was. But if no one else can't get free from this, or no one else can be impacted because of this, I don't want nobody else to. No. If it ain't touching these people, I want to touch nobody else. And we have to do a better job as we're moving to not sit there and think that no one else, because we already have enough of that rhetoric. The white woman who I just saw a video of in California deciding that she wanted to go into downtown in her city, not in my town, and go and start painting over Black lives because she felt that it was hers.
It was hers. This is my street.
It's my street, my town. And her husband had the audacity, to say the Emancipation Proclamation made you all free. We made you you're only free because we made it again. Yep. Because there's that entitlement. And so we have to do a better job again, and then putting that into the atmosphere, despite of what
the entitlement goes for both, though, right? Like it does. Black people who are not allowing our allies to make mistakes and to have missteps and to want to exclude them from the process. They're also the same level of entitlement, and it increased the problem. When you talked about Martin Luther King, that's such a beautiful example of the inclusion on a whole nother level. Let me give you, what I mean by that. I've been reading a book. I love Taylor Branch. Taylor Branch is the white authorized biographer of Martin Luther King. He has written the most prolific series of books about Dr. King's life that to me are just amazing because it comes from a different lens or vantage point. To me, the book being written by a white historian, it gives me a different vantage point than some of the other texts that I've read that were written by Black historians. And I like to have multiple viewpoints and vantage points of how we view people because I would like to get to the truth of who people are and who they were and how they were perceived by different groups. In his book, The Road to Canaan, that's the last part of the series where Dr. King loses his life. You get the close, deep look at how King was against, of course, the Vietnam War and that conflict. You get a look at how his last campaign was against poverty. And so many people only look at the work he did with civil rights, but the next phase of that became a war against poverty, and that was way more inclusive because everybody was poor. Every race had people who were poor, but that also was the campaign that caused him to lose his life. Mm-hmm. Dr. King, some would say, did not lose his life fighting for civil rights, what you inherently know you need, but it was when you bring everybody on board of every race and coalesce them around a single issue. That's when this man had to lose his life because the message was too powerful and too dangerous and was too unifying. Mm-hmm. I believe if Dr. King's campaign against poverty would have succeeded, you would have then very likely ended systemic racism and oppression, because there will be no reason for systemic oppression and racism to continue to exist. Mm-hmm. If you break down poverty, you end poverty, you don't have a reason for racism. It no longer makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen. So I think that messaging him as an example was so well done.
I had this conversation with my pastor and some other people. I'm just curious about your take on it. And I'll break down my thought process behind it. Do you prefer equality or equity?
Well, that's a really good question. And I've never thought about it. I've never thought through that. But of course, the right thing to say is always, the politically correct thing to say is, I prefer equity. Mm-hmm. That's the politically correct thing to say for now. So in this moment, I want equity. But mm-hmm. I hope in 100 years, in a generation, it'll be fine just simply to have equality.
Mm-hmm. For me, as like you, I'm different. I'm not normal. My ideas and my ideology might be flawed, and I'm okay with that, just the way I think. And there's many reasons why I believe that I prefer equity over equality. Particularly even around this conversation that we've heard about 4th of July and Juneteenth and some other things. Right now, where I am in my life is the reason I have this idea or this mindset of wanting equity over equality is simply because of the fact that, as pertains to, my counterparts, I don't want them to feel as if their road to freedom was the same as mine.
Because it's not.
Yeah, your road to freedom was the fact that you were getting away from a people who were oppressing you through finances and religious beliefs and things of that nature. You were looking for a freedom from a people, and you left and went away. My people weren't trying to get away from nobody. We were fine where we were. You came and got us for us to be oppressed in a place, for us to then try to to get away from what that very thing that was oppressing. And so, and to still even live in a country to where, even though we have a document that says we are free, there's still a space where we're not equal. Because of the fact, I understand that the Constitution says a certain thing and all men are created equal. Unfortunately, we are not. Because of the fact that you still have the people who said that we were created equal, creating the laws to keep us not equal. And for that reason, at this point, I'm not looking to be your equal. At this point, I want you to at least recognize. That's where my equity. That's where equity comes from.
Yeah, we're saying the exact same thing. Yeah. Like we're 100%. That's why I said, for this moment, equity. In 100 years, I hope equality. Yeah. Because, DeAndre, we are equal. We are 100% equal. God made us all equal. It is man who made laws that would create a system of us not being equal. But we are equal. Just like I don't believe, my ancestors were not slaves. They were enslaved. And so I think my ancestors, we were never not equal, because God did make us equal. But the laws made by the man who was in control to oppress at that moment in time took away those rights that would have made us unequal in that by the law. But I have to go, DeAndre. I've got to go now.
We have to go.
We can have a part. We need to have a part 2. We need to have other series, and we need to continue the conversation. And we need to hear from our viewers so we can continue the conversation with PickEd Speaks.
Yes. So please make sure because I was like, I kept looking. I was like, oh my God, we've gone quite a long way, and people have been staying on. So thank you if you're chiming in. I appreciate that. Listen, I will grab you more than likely for a part 2.
Anytime, I'll be here, available, happy to join in.
I will grab you part 2. Please.
I'm quarantined. I'm not leaving the house. I'm not playing games with people. I got my gloves. I wear gloves and a mask still, and will continue to do so.
Please make sure. As you can see, we have our handles on the bottom. Please also make sure that you follow on Facebook. Please make sure that you go like my actual professional page, and you'll hear at the very closing how else you can find us. Is there any last thing that you want to give to the people before we go?
Not a thing. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Again, if you do a part 2, send all the questions to the lunchbox. We can go deep with some education, deep with philosophy, deep with politics, whatever you want to hear. We are here, and I'm happy to do it. So
please make sure also, you may see it pop on the screen, we're raising funds for our foundation. Please make sure that you go give to the Bright Spot Fund, the Assistance Fund. That actually helps us provide small grants to families in need. Please make sure you do that by going to, again, Cash App to For Brighter Futures, or PayPal for Brighter Futures, or you may go to our website at www.forbrighterfutures.com/giving. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for just being with us. Until we meet again, people, I love you all. Again, thank you all so much for joining PickEd Speaks, where Black excellence speaks for itself. Until next time, God bless you and have a good night.
Thanks for watching another episode of PickEd Speaks. Join us every Monday night right here at 7 p.m. You can also follow us or visit at www.facebook.com/IMDSPickEd and follow us today. Again, thanks for watching PickEd Speaks.
Hey y'all, I just want to come on and show a Black-owned business to support called Body Crystals Co. I love their body souffles. They are my favorite thing to moisturize with. I refuse to use anything else at this point. They are really nourishing for my skin, and they make the biggest difference I've ever seen. They smell amazing, and the texture on the product is really light and fluffy, and it's full of nourishing butters and oils, all natural ingredients, guys, and a little goes a long way. Look at how it just sinks into my skin. I assure you, that shoulder felt amazing. It doesn't leave a greasy feeling at all, and it gives a nice, deep, penetrating moisture, and it lasts a long time. It's good for the ashiest of ankles, I promise. And you can use it on your face and your hair. This stuff is really multifunctional. Go show us some love. All right, power to the people.